Chief Medical Officer. Dr. Coatsworth, thanks so much for your time. Can you give our viewers a sense of where you see things this morning? How is Australia's response tracking in combating the virus?
Well, I think we can be cautiously optimistic at this point in time. The graphs show a clear flattening of the curve, but I would say to Australians, we're at the end of the first quarter in the grand final. We are a goal ahead, but we know that if we work as a team and we keep playing as we are now, we can get the premiership, but we're a long way away from that being the case. So it's far too early for us to drop the ball. And I think that the virus often dictates its own timeline. And if we do stop these measures too early, then we've seen graphs in the media showing that there could be a resurgence of cases. So we have to be careful on those grounds.
3,000 residents in 9 housing estates in Melbourne's inner northwest are tonight unable to leave in an extraordinary move to stop the virus spreading like wildfire. 2 more postcodes have been added to the hotspot suburbs and will go into lockdown at midnight. And Victoria has recorded 108 new coronavirus cases, our second biggest daily increase since the pandemic began.
Advised me to reimpose stage 3 stay-at-home restrictions, staying at home except for the 4 reasons to leave, effective from midnight tomorrow night for a period of 6 weeks. There is simply no alternative other than thousands and thousands of cases and potentially more, many people in hospital and the inevitable tragedy that will come.
Good evening. Victoria has recorded its deadliest day of the coronavirus pandemic. 10 people have died, including a man in his 40s. There are also 459 new infections as the Premier slammed people refusing to wear face masks.
No, I would encourage Victorians where you cannot social distance and you are in proximity to other people to please wear a mask. Thank you very much.
Right, so Tony, so it's end of July almost?
Yeah, winter time.
In Melbourne, and we've thought we were getting somewhere with the whole COVID thing.
Oh yeah,
but
it's
things have changed.
Pressure.
It's gone for the worse now.
It has.
Okay.
It's changed things. And your options become very scaled down, as in what you can and can't do. But I guess, you know, just go on and try your best, and on it goes. So it's part and parcel.
What would you say is different from, say, this lockdown compared to the first lockdown?
Up to a point, it doesn't really make too much difference.
Well,
for myself,
let me rephrase it. The feeling. How different is the feeling? Not the technical side of it, but how different is the feeling this lockdown compared to the last one?
Well, just the environment's changed. The environment, as you can understand, a lot of it is scaled down, and you can and can't do things. And now, because it's in the public eye, as much as my situation for people with handicaps have to involve what goes on and doesn't go on. Basically, it's something that we have to get used to, taking each day as it comes, and we keep going on, plugging on. That's all you can do. Can't do much else. It's part and parcel. You accept the change. If you want to do things, you go around what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. But a lot of it's what you can do and can't do. So some changes that happen, and they make a big difference in what's going on in life. So the challenges are to continue on with what it is and the way you handle it, or think you can handle it, and plug on. And that's all there is to it. There's no options. The options become very limited because of your abilities they can lead to frustrations because you can't do that anymore, even though you expose yourself to the environment which you were used to prior to where you are now and how you're handling it. So you just have to keep going on and take each day as it comes. That's basically the whole story. It's very hard to make sense of some things where there's really no sense at all for some of the things that go on. Now, that's life at the moment, and dare I say, a lot of the changes will be because of, in our case, the COVID issue, and it's caused a lot of restrictions. And these restrictions on people right across the board. So whether you're handicapped or not, you have to mix in with society, and that's the way it is. So we have to continue on. But I don't know.
Well, another question I suppose I've got for you is that the last time we did a video,
Yeah, the Hollywood one, yeah.
we were coming out of stage 2 restrictions, and then between that video and this one, we were able to go back into restaurants, sit down and have a meal.
Yeah, very
not at the
limited
same
times.
It was limited times.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't watch the footy when we wanted to together, or things like that, or at a pub and sit down. But things were open again, and I was looked like it was slowly getting back
Changing.
on track.
Yeah, it was. But
did you feel frustrated during that time, and you not knowing what was coming ahead, where we are now?
Yeah.
But you still felt a little bit frustrated, but were you a little bit glad at least that we were heading in the right direction?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's to a point. I think a lot of it is how you're actually coping and your ability to go on and take the next step. It makes a big difference in when you change your environment that you're living in. And when that changes, it causes frustrations. If anything, frustrations, your plans go out the window because of what you would have wanted to do and you can't do them. But that's part of the restrictions, and that's where we are at the moment. Unfortunately, it's a change that of no fault of anyone's, but what's happened is society's moving on. It's changing. It's having to see things in a different light, in a different way, and sometimes aside from all the issues that occur with the challenges of having to continue on, they're challenges because you can't just put your hands up and say, that's it, it's not it. But the whole truth is, if you don't take it upon yourself to want to continue on, you will struggle. That's the truth. It's grey in all areas right across the board, everything from what it is that you're doing. But as for your environment as such, that's part and parcel. Life goes on, and you do the best you can. That's all. There's no easy answer to any situation like a handicap. It's a part of getting used to it and change what you can and what you can't. Just continue on. But
What about, what are your thoughts at the moment on the masks, wearing the masks?
Well, the mask,
I mean, let's sort your personal opinion on it, knowing how important it is to wear one, but how does it make you feel when you do wear one?
well, it's more of a situation that it's not a choice. Well, it's got to a stage where it's not a choice issue when you go outside your environment, your house, and you have to put it on because you have to protect yourself, so-called, and other people, which is okay. I mean, you do your share, and you do the best way you can. And if it's a mask, it's a mask.
How do you feel about some of those people that perhaps when you see someone not wearing a mask out in the street, walking past you, how does that make you feel? You concerned by that?
Not really concerned.
No?
Not to the point where my protection that I've put on, I've chosen to, and if someone doesn't want to, it's a personal choice. If you have an option, or if you don't have an option, because in this case the government says no, this is what we do in this area because it's our form of protecting you or protecting others, which is fine, but it's all a band-aid, yeah. A band-aid for a period of time. In this case, we've got a mask.
What else do you do to sort of to protect yourself and others?
Yeah, your health is a form of having to do exercises to keep yourself fit. And in my case, moving around in this direction, as in with, of course, my carer, to have someone on board and near me to at least overlook what I do, and just in case.
So when you say overlook what you do,
well, be like on hand
to monitor to make sure that you're wearing everything correctly.
Issue, yeah.
So when your carer is not around, or your support worker rather is not around, do you find that perhaps you get a little bit relaxed with your personal protection with regards to the virus, like things like masks and gloves?
The carer and like
so when a carer is not around,
the age that I have, I mean, a lot of it is on hand because you have to actually put it in place. So, like I have to inject or have to take tablets, I have to take tablets. But knowing full well the effects of what I'm doing will result in, hopefully, some sort of solution to help me, so-called quality of life.
I remember last time when we had the first lockdown, when we were about to have the first lockdown, stage 3 lockdown, which is where we're at in Melbourne. You became quite concerned and you were quite vocal about how concerned you were about the virus. Is it exactly the same feeling this second time around, or do you feel a little bit more relaxed about it, or are you a little bit angry about it? Or how does the second time compare to the first time?
Well, it's upsetting I feel personally, it's upsetting because I think you work so hard to do things, to change things and make it happen, and then you're up against all these negatives in regarding to who decides what you do and what you don't do. But as for help-wise, you realise, in my case, if you don't do it, no one's going to do it. So the truth is, you accept reality. And it is a reality check, you know, whether you feel that it's doing something. Sure, at the moment you can't tell. It's not that easy. It's not exactly like a headache, and you take a headache tablet and you feel better for it. With certain disabilities, in my case, it's not that easy because you get your days. It gets difficult being able to put up with your life changes, and you're wondering, how do you cope with this, or how do you deal with this? But you continue.
Can I say it again?
No, that's soldier. On the other side, on the road side, it's a different soldier to the one from the back here. I thought it was the back of him. It's not the back of him. It's a different one.
So, you were saying about a little story. You want to tell it again about what you used to do when you were younger in relation to...
Oh, coming up here
here.
to go for a run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to come here to go for a Rocky Balboa type time.
How did that work?
And that was it was okay, but I didn't really do it for very long. But I did it for a few months, as in friends, and we thought it's the best way to become fit is to go for a run and do what Rocky did.
Back in the 80s.
Oh my God.
So what did you do? You ran from Richmond
I ran from Richmond to here.
to here,
Yeah,
and then what?
Oh,
When you got here, what did you do?
we'd go up the steps, run up the steps until we got told by one of the security guards years ago about running up here. You can't do that. But out of respect, I can understand it. But I guess in a lot of cases, if you don't push the letter a little bit, how would you know? I mean, it's something that you really, another challenge here. They're challenges. They're always challenges. There's always, society keeps moving on and puts all these regulations and rules and laws to protect itself and protect the people. I guess in a lot of cases, I see what is happening now, and I look at it and I think life has moved around quite a lot. It's taken a complete left wing, but it's causing. That's not caused hysteria. It's not that. It hasn't got to that
Hysteria,
degree.
that's not called.
Or hysteria, yeah. Because unlike America or Europe or areas where the population is very large, there's a lot more people, a lot more issues, and a lot more other.
Do you think, are you
problems.
happy or dissatisfied, or are you understanding of the government, the Victorian government, and how it's approached this latest lockdown? Are you satisfied with it, or are you angry? Are you?
No,
Obviously
I
you wouldn't be
won't
happy,
say I'm angry as much as it's upsetting to a degree of. Are you kidding me? Again? We've already gone through it once. We're going through it again and again. And the way I understand it, they'll keep doing it until they get a solution, which is fine. Which is, if you don't try it, how would you know? You wouldn't. But as for the effects of it and what it does to you mentally, it's a bit of a brain strain. It can bring up other problems. You've got no stability happening, and in my case, my focusing and so-called balance is not there anyway. The last thing you need is a pressure from your government around you to have to deal with. And anyway, that's part of life. That's the way it goes. When you're in this, when your environment changes and it gets to a stage where it seems normal to you, but it's actually strange. In our case, it's strange because it's something that we didn't know what to expect, and now we do. That this so-called lockdown that they have, for more than one reason, but the lockdown involves a lot of other processes getting on with what it is you're doing in life. And if that involves your, be it exercise, be it a routine that you have to alter and change, then you do because you know that aside from what is going on externally, it affects you internally. Because
explain the effects you internal.
Well, the internal part of it is what you can and can't do, and what.
You mean your emotions? Do you mean internally?
Physically, your abilities to do certain exercise or areas where you can exercise or can't exercise.
Well, speaking of exercises, in that short time that we got off stage 3 restrictions, we were able to go back to the pools. We went there for one session before we went back into stage 3.
Which is. Well, it doesn't tell you much, does it? It's
frustrating for you, was it?
Yeah, it's all frustrating. It's frustrating to see that you can't measure the help part of it. The help part of it meaning is what it's doing for you. But you can measure what it's not doing for you, because you're realizing now, I can't go there, I can't do this anymore. And each one of us to a different degree, especially if you've got aids that you're using, and sometimes having that support comes to a closure. You know, by not having it, the effects of that so-called disability that you might have, you realise then the reality is that, you know, had things been a little bit different, maybe it would change a bit. Maybe it would.
The way I'm picking up what you're saying is basically you're feeling that a lot of doors closed to you.
Oh, they have. A lot of
that would normally be open.
A lot of signs pop up. A lot of signs. You can't do that, and so on. And you find that, okay, if you don't, even though you know you shouldn't, you take it on anyway, and you take that risk. And by taking that risk, you feel there are challenges, and that's part and parcel. I mean, life goes on to different degrees. Sometimes it needs to be moved on, and that's the way it is. And this is the way it is. There's some things you can do and things that you can't, but I guess in a lot of cases we concentrate on what it is that we've got, and we try and take that on board to try and make your life a little better.
So what do you find most frustrating this time around? What stands out the most? Or a few of the things that stand out the most? Is it the mask, the gloves?
No, I think the frustrating part about the whole thing is that it still exists, it still happens, it's still happening. And you think we haven't really accomplished anything in a positive way, because a lot of cases have become gone in different directions, which were not positive at all.
So what about if you compare, say, our situation from your perspective?
Yeah.
You compare our situation here in Melbourne to the rest of the country, and going one step further than that to some other parts of the world.
Well, the differences are, all I see is what is in front of me. So my environment is where I live, and this is how we cope with it and handle it. And I'm sure there's other areas where they've going through it in a different way, in a different degree of ability, and sometimes because of it, it's caused a lot of unsureties about what's going on. So if I don't expect to be the one to say what does and doesn't, only to myself. But as for the government controlling, sure, it's too hard. It's very difficult to look at it on the big scale, because how you deal with it and you cope with it and the change that you want to put in place is very it causes a concern, because you really are not sure what to expect.
If the government was to turn around and say, look, we've looked at the numbers, we've looked at the math, we've looked at the biology of it all, and we feel that we need to do this for not just 6 weeks. We need to go on for a further 2 months on top of that. How do you feel that would affect you?
Well, each stage comes in different degrees for me anyway, because I know what I can and can't do up to this point. On top of this, I've got other issues that I have to deal with my environment around me, and that tends to take control of my options of whether I can go there or can't go there. So your rules and regulations alter and change. Unfortunately, that's what the government has to put in place, because otherwise, how's it going to control the majority of people? It won't be able to. As for has it got any better since we've already been in this stage gone through these stages for about 1, 2, 3 times? This can go on. It probably can, and maybe the stages will become more. The continuation of them is a lot to do with how you're able to initially deal with it. If the majority of people are not dealing with it, and you've seen it already, you get protest marches and so on. I mean, as an individual, I can't do these protest marches and so on. I can't really involve myself that greatly in it, other than understanding and watching it on television. But to think that it happens, and you see how the world's handling the issues, and in this case the COVID, is affecting quite a few people. And because it has to change. It has to alter. It has to make different kind of forces to make it happen, to make things work. And that's really hard, because you're talking about not one person, you're talking about a lot of people. And that's, what do? You can't really do much else except go on. And that's what the option go. That's what you can't keep going on, but you expect that you'll see some changes happening, and it's frustrating when you feel like the answer to the government is, we just call it another stage. We'll go to 4 stages.
If we go to stage 4.
What's stage 4? What's stage 5?
I didn't even know.
What's stage 5?
I don't know if there is a stage 5.
So how can you say stage 4? You only go with what you
what we've seen around the world.
You've seen, yeah. But each one individually, in the way we cope with it and handle it, and what we think is stage 1, 2, 3, or 4, and how it affects us. But as for the reality is that it makes a big difference when you suddenly have gone through these so-called restrictions, and you continue going on with the restrictions. You can't keep going on with the restrictions because your life, you take away a freedom, and the freedom of being able to accomplish some sort of satisfaction of doing things that are helping you.
You mean like the
Exercise,
freedom or the satisfaction
whatever.
of just living life?
Do what just live life. Life is very important, especially to different degrees. And you have stages where
You
people
do understand though the government's message where basically they're taking away some of these freedoms.
well, they have to.
So you get that?
Yeah, I understand what they're doing, but the whole truth is, how long can you put up with it for? I mean, until you get yourself in a situation that you're confined to a degree that you can't move around. And when you just can't move around anymore because of the so-called restrictions, you think to yourself, what the is going on? You know, some stages, normal life will be a dream because you've had it before, but you're not looking like you're going to get it very soon. No, because we've got too many other issues concerning trying to solve a problem that we really have no answer to. So basically it's all trial basis. You know, we'll try this, try that, try this. You can't keep trying. You can't keep going on like that because it's got to stop.